Hi first graders. I'm here and I have two things. I have my blue reading book. I'm on page 144. And I also have my writing journal turned to a nice blank page. You will need these items too, so please grab them. Make sure you remember something to write with as well. I have my pinch, my flip grip ready to rock for some neat handwriting. Okay, today for writing we are going to be answering just one of the questions on page 144 that talk about a southern ranch. Now by now you have hopefully read it at least 2 times, and we're actually going to reread one page. It says for number 5, this is the question we're going to answer. Look back and write. Look back at pages 136 and 137. How do ranch hands keep the herd together? Write about it. And that's what we're going to do. So the question that we're looking for the answer to is, how do ranch hands keep the herd together? Remember, the herd is that big group of livestock. So let's go ahead and take a look back like they tell us at pages 136 and 137. In your book with me, let's go back. It's only a few pages where you see this. And we will reread this page together so that you can continue thinking about how the ranch hands keep the herds together. Okay, hopefully you're there now. Go ahead and follow along with me as we read. After getting 8 or 10 cows, ranch hands must keep them together and keep them walking. Cows might run off. Ranch hands must chase them and bring them back. Now, I don't really hear an answer to our question in this part of the page. I hear them telling us that the cows can walk off or run off, and that the ranch hands have to chase them and bring them back. But it doesn't really tell us how they do that. Okay, remember our question asked, how do the ranch hands keep the herds together? So let's continue on, because it said 136 and 137, which is this page over here. And let's read this page together. We have this part at the top and at the bottom, so I'll move my book when we get there. Here we go. Ranch hands need well-trained horses for this work. These horses can be steered by just a touch, and they know cows. Sometimes cattle dogs help keep the cows together too. So, did you hear a way that answers how those ranch hands keep the cows together? I hope so. Give you a hint, there are actually 2 things that they tell you about how they keep them together. And we are going to write about them both. Okay? Let's read this page one more time. Think about the 2 things that tell how ranch hands keep the herd together. Ranch hands need well-trained horses for this work. These horses can be steered by just a touch, and they know cows. Sometimes cattle dogs help keep the cows together too. Okay, did you get it? Now, together we're going to write one part of our answer, and then you are going to write the next part, because in your answer I'm going to say, first graders, I want you to talk about both ways that tell how those ranch hands keep the herds together. So, did you hear the first way that they said up here, where they talk about a certain something that they use to keep those horses or to keep the herd together? And what is it? What is that animal? A horse, right? Okay, so they use horses. We want to write a complete sentence. So we need to have a naming part and a telling part. So we're talking about how ranch hands keep the herds together. So let's make sure we start our sentence with who we're talking about. We are talking about ranch hands. I'm going to use a capital R, and so will you. Okay, I see the words ranch hands here in my book, so I can copy that spelling. It's a resource that you can always use. I do need a finger space in between ranch and hands. It's not one long word. Okay. Now the question asks, how do they? Well, what do they use, first graders? We're going to now do our telling part. Ranch hands use what? What's one of the things? The first thing they talked about were the horses. Okay, the word horses is also in the text, so I can copy the spelling. Notice how I used all the space on my line. Now I'm going to go to the next line. Ranch hands use horses to do what, boys and girls? To keep the who? You could say cows here. You could also use the word herd. Whatever one works for you is fine with me. Since I see the word cows, I don't see the word herd on this page, so I'll just go ahead and use cows. To keep the cows together. That is a big word. I do not have enough space for that big word on this line, so I'm going to go to the next line. Look at this. Together is way down here at the bottom of the page if you need help spelling it. Okay. This is how we write a response to a story. We want to use a complete sentence, and also notice how many of those words we were able to pull right out of the text. We didn't copy what they said, but we used words from the text to help us answer our question. Now, there was another way that they use, or another thing that they use to keep the cows together. Okay? What was that other thing that they use? And this is the part you're going to do on your own. I will help you with a sentence starter, and you will do the rest on your own. Since our first sentence says ranch hands use horses to keep the cows together, I don't necessarily need to tell all of this about keeping the cows together again. We can use something called also. Okay? We're going to start with a capital T and write they. Okay, they also. Use blank, and that is yours to figure out what is that other thing that they use, that they tell on this page to keep the herd together. If you're still stumped, remember we already talked about the horses. I will read the page for you one more time, and then you can finish your sentence. Ranch hands need well-trained horses for this work. These horses can be steered by just a touch, and they know cows. So, we already talked about the horses, so you're listening for the other thing that they use. Sometimes cattle dogs help keep the cows together too. Okay, so that's where we're putting they also use blank. You need to finish that sentence and add your period, please. Okay? Make sure your handwriting is neat enough for me and you and any other person to read